Jean Froissart on the Peasants Revolt. Get yourself a nice cup of tea or a glass of wine, sit back and relax, and welcome to a reading of Jean Froissart's account of the Peasants Revolt, one of the most significant events in English history. Froissart, a 14th century chronicler, provides a vivid eyewitness account of this dramatic and turbulent event. The Peasants' Revolt, which took place in 1381, was sparked by widespread discontent with high taxes, oppressive labour conditions and economic hardship, particularly among the lower classes. The revolt quickly spread across England, from first Essex and then Kent to London, as thousands marched on the capital demanding justice and reform. Froissart's narrative offers insight into not only the revolt itself, but also the tensions between the social classes, the power struggles of the time and the harsh realities of medieval life. Through his words we get a glimpse into the mindsets of both the rebels and the nobility they confronted. While Froissart was a loyal observer of the elite, his account is one of the few from the period that captures the dramatic events with a sense of immediacy. In this reading we will delve into Froissart's portrayal of the revolt's key moments, including the storming of the Tower of London, the leaders' demands and the ultimate failure of the peasant uprising. So sit back, relax, and let's step back in time to explore the gripping narrative of one of the most pivotal moments in English history. Part 1. How the Commons of England rebelled against the noblemen. In the mean season there fell in England great mischief and rebellion of moving of the common people, by which deed England was at a point to have been lost without recovery. There was never realm nor country in so great adventure as it was in that time, and all because of the ease and riches that the common people were of, which moved them to this rebellion, as sometime they did in France, the which did much hurt, for by such incidents the realm of France hath been greatly grieved. It was a marvellous thing and of poor foundation that this mischief began in England, and to give example to all manner of people, I will speak thereof as if was done, as I was informed, and of the incidents thereof. There was a usage in England, and yet is in divers countries, that the nobleman hath great franchise over the commons, and keepeth them in servage, that is to say, their tenants ought by custom to labour the lord's lands, to gather and bring home their corn, and some to thresh and to fan, and by severage to make their hay, and to hew their wood and bring it home. Thus the noblemen and prelates are served by them, and specially in the county of Kent, Essex, Sussex and Bedford. These unhappy people of these said countries began to stir, because they said they were kept in great servage, and in the beginning of the world, they said, there were no bondmen. Wherefore they maintained that none ought to be bond, without he did treason to his lord, as Lucifer did to God. They said they were men formed to the similitude of their lords, saying why should they then be kept so under like beasts? The which they said they would no longer suffer, for they would be all one, and if they laboured or did anything for their lords, they would have wages therefor as well as others. And of this imagination was a foolish priest in the county of Kent, called John Ball, for the which foolish words he had been 3 times in the Archbishop of Canterbury's prison. For this priest used oftentimes on Sundays after Mass, when the people were going out of the minster, to go into the cloister and preach, and made the people to assemble about him, and would say thus. Here follows the words of John Ball as quoted by Froissart. Ah, the good people, matters go not well to pass in England, nor shall do till everything be common, and that there be no villeins nor gentlemen, and the lords be no greater masters than we be. What have we deserved, or why should we be kept thus in servage? We all come from one father and one mother, Adam and Eve. Whereby can they say or show that they be greater lords than we be, saving by what they cause us to win and labour for what they dispend? They are clothed in velvet and camlet, furred with grey squirrel, and we be vested with poor cloth. They have their wines, spices, and good bread, and we have the drawing out of the chaff and drink water. They dwell in fair houses, and we have the pain and labour, rain and wind in the fields, and by that which cometh of our labours they keep and maintain their estates. We be called their bondmen, and without we do them service readily, we be beaten, and we have no sovereign to whom we may complain that will hear us or do us right. Let us go to the king, he is young, and show him what service we be in, and show him how we will have it otherwise, or else we will provide us of some remedy. And when the king seeth us, we shall have some remedy, either by fairness or otherwise. Thus John Ball said on Sundays, when the people issued out of the churches in the villages. Wherefore many of the mean people loved him, and such as intended to know goodness said how he said truth. And so they would murmur one with another in the fields and in the ways as they went together, affirming how John Ball said truth. Of his words and deeds there were many people in London informed, such as had great envy of them, that had rich, and such as were noble. And then they began to speak among them, and said how the realm of England was right evilly governed, and how that gold and silver was taken from them by them that were named noblemen. So thus these unhappy men of London began to rebel, and assembled them together, and sent word to the foresaid counties that they should come to London and bring their people with them, promising them how they should find London open to receive them. This promise moved so them of Kent, of Essex, of Sussex, of Bedford, and of the counties about, that they rose and came towards London to the number of 60,000. And they had a captain called Wat Tyler, and with him in company was Jack Straw and John Ball. These three were chief sovereign captains, but the head of all was Wat Tyler, and he was indeed a tiler of houses, an ungracious patron. When these unhappy men began thus to stir, they of London, except such as were of their band, were greatly afraid. Then the mayor of London and the rich men of the city took counsel together, and when they saw the people thus coming on every side, they caused the gates of the city to be closed, and would suffer no man to enter into the city. The same time King Richard was at the Tower of London, and with him there was the Earl of Salisbury, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Sir Robert of Newmar, and Lord de Comminges, and divers others, who were in no doubt of these people that thus gathered together, and wist not what they demanded. This rebellion was well known in the king's court ere any of these people began to stir out of their houses, but neither the king nor his council did provide no remedy therefor, which was great marvel. Froissart and the Peasants Revolt, Part 2. The evil deeds that these commons of England did to the king's officers, and how they sent a knight to speak with the king. The Monday before the feast of Corpus Christi, the year of our Lord God 1381, these people issued out of their houses to come to London, to speak with the king to be made free, for they would have no bondmen in England. And so first they came to the shrine of St. Thomas of Canterbury, and there John Ball had thought to have found the Archbishop of Canterbury, but he was at London with the king. When Wat Tyler and Jack Straw entered into Canterbury, all the common people made great feast, for all the town was of their assent. And there they took counsel to go to London to the king, and to send some of their company over the river of Thames into Essex, into Suffolk, and into the counties of Hertford and Bedford, to speak to the people that they should all come to the farther side of London, and thereby to close London around about, so that the king should not stop their passages, and that they should all meet together on Corpus Christi Day. They that were at Canterbury entered into St. Thomas's church, and did there much hurt, and robbed and broke up the Archbishop's chamber, and in robbing and bearing out their pillage they said, "Ah, this Chancellor of England have had a good market to get together all these riches. He shall give us now account of the revenues of England, and of the great profits that he hath gathered since the king's coronation." They departed in the morning, and all the people of Canterbury with them, and so took the way to Rochester, and sent their people to the villages about. And in their going they beat down and robbed houses of advocates and procurers of the king's court and of the archbishop, and had mercy of none. And when they were come to Rochester, they had their good cheer, for the people of that town tarried for them, for they were of the same sect. And then they went to the castle there, and took the knight that had the rule there. He was called Sir John Newton, and they said to him, "Sir, it behoveth you to go with us, and you shall be our sovereign captain, and do that we will have you." The knight excused himself honestly, and showed them divers considerations and excuses, but all availed him nothing, for they said unto him, "Sir John, if you do not as we will have you, ye are but dead." The knight, seeing these people in that fury, and ready to slay him, feared death, and agreed to them, and so they took him with them against his inward will. And they went forward till they came within a 4 mile of London, and there lodged on a hill called Blackheath. And as they went, they said ever they were the king's men and the noble commons of England. And when they of London knew that they would come so near to them, the mayor, as ye have heard before, closed the gates and kept straitly all the passages. Then these people, thus being lodged on Blackheath, determined to send their knight to speak with the king and to show him all that they had done or would do was for him and his honour, and how the realm of England had not been well governed, a great space for the honour of the realm, nor for the common profit, by his uncles and by the clergy, and specially by the Archbishop of Canterbury, his chancellor, whereof they would have their account. This knight durst do none otherwise, but to come by the river of Thames to the Tower. The king and they that were with him in the Tower, desiring to hear tidings, seeing this knight coming, made him away. And he was brought before the king into a chamber. And with the king was the princess his mother and his two brethren, the Earl of Kent and the Lord John Holland, the Earl of Salisbury, the Earl of Warwick, the Earl of Oxford, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Mayor of London, and divers other noble burgesses. This knight, Sir John Newton, who was well known among them, for he was one of the king's officers, kneeled down before the king and said, My right redoubted lord, let it not displease your grace the message that I must needs show you, for, dear sir, it is by force and against my will. So John, said the king, say what you will, I hold you excused. Sir, the commons of this realm have sent me to you to desire you to come and speak with them on Blackheath, for they desire to have none but you. And sir, you need not to have any doubt of your person, for they will do you no hurt, for they hold and will hold you for their king. But sir, they say they will show you divers things, the which shall be right necessary for you to take heed of, when they speak with you, of the which things, sir, I have no charge to show you. But, sir, if it may please you, give me an answer such as may appease them, that they may know for truth that I have spoken with you. For they have my children in hostage till I return again to them, and without I return again, they will slay my children. Then the king made him an answer and said, Sir, ye shall have an answer shortly. Then the king took counsel what was best for him to do, and it was soon determined that the next morning the king should go down the river by water without fail to speak with them. And when Sir John Newton heard that answer, he desired nothing else, and so took his leave of the king and of the lords, and returned again into his vessel, and passed the Thames and went to Blackheath, where he had left more than 70,000 men. And there he answered them that the next morning they should send some of their council to the Thames, and there the king would come and speak with them. This answer greatly pleased them, and so passed that night as well as they might. Froissart and the Peasants Revolt, Part 3. How the commons of England entered into London, and of the great evil that they did, and of the death of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and divers others. In the morning of Corpus Christi Day, King Richard heard mass in the Tower of London, and all his lords, and then he took his barge with the Earl of Salisbury, the Earl of Warwick, and certain knights, and so rode down along the Thames to Rotherhithe, where they descended down the hill 10,000 men to see the king and to speak with them. And when they saw the king's barge coming, they began to shout, and made such a cry as though all the devils of hell had been among them. And they had brought with them Sir John Newton, to the intent that, if the king had not come, they would have strucken him in all to pieces, and so they have promised him. And when the king and his lords saw the demeanour of the people, the best assured of them were in dread. And so the king was counselled by his barons not to take any landing there, but so rode up and down the river. And the king demanded of them what they would, and said how he was come hither to speak with them. And they said all with one voice, We would that ye should come a land, and then we shall show you what we lack. Then the Earl of Salisbury answered for the king and said, Sirs, you be not in such order nor array that the king ought to speak with you. And so with those words was no more said. And then the king was counselled to return again to the Tower of London, and so he did. And when these people saw that, they were inflamed with ire, and returned to the hill where the great band was. And there showed them what answer they had, and how the king was returned to the Tower of London. Then they cried all with one voice, Let us go to London. And so they took their way thither. And in their going they beat down abbeys and houses of advocates and of men of the court, and so came into the suburbs of London, which were great and fair. And there beat down divers fair houses, and especially they broke up the king's prisons, as the Marshalsea and other, and delivered out of all the prisoners that were within. And there they did much hurt, and at the bridge foot they threatened them of London, because the gates of the bridge were closed, saying how they would burn all the suburbs, and so conquer London by force, and slay and burn all the commons of the city. There were many within the city of their accord, and so they drew together and said, Why do we not let these good people enter into the city? They are our fellows, and that which they do is for us. So therewith the gates were opened, and then these people entered into the city, and went into houses, and sat down to eat and drink. They desired nothing but it was immediately brought to them, for every man was ready to make them good cheer, and to give them meat and drink to appease them. Then the captains, as John Ball, Jack Straw, and Wat Tyler, went throughout London, and 20,000 with them, and so came to the Savoy, in the way to Westminster, which was a goodly house, and it pertained to the Duke of Lancaster. And when they entered, they slew the keepers thereof, and robbed and pillaged the house. And when they had so done, then they set fire on it, and clean destroyed and burned it. And when they had done that outrage, they left not therewith, but went straight to the fair hospital of the roads called St. John's, and there they burned house, hospital, minster, and all. Then they went from street to street, and slew all the Flemings that they could find in church or in any other place. There was none repealed from death. And they brake up divers houses of the Lombards, and robbed them, and took their goods at their pleasure, for there was none that durst say them nay. And they slew in the city a rich merchant, called Richard Lyon, to whom before that time Wat Tyler had done service in France. And on a time this Richard Lyon had beaten him while he was his valet, the which Wat Tyler then remembered. And so came to his house, and strake off his head, and caused it to be borne on a spear point before him all about the city. Thus these ungracious people demeaned themselves like people enraged and mad, and so that day they did much sorrow in London. And so against night they went to lodge at St. Catherine's before the Tower of London, saying how they would never depart thence till they had the king at their pleasure, and till he had accorded to them all that they would ask. And so when they had done all these evils all the day, at night they lodged before the Tower. You may well know and believe that it was great pity for the danger that the king and such as were with him were in. For some time these unhappy people shouted and cried so loud, as though all the devils of hell had been among them. In this evening the king was counselled by his brethren-in-laws, and by Sir Nicholas Walworth, Mayor of London, and divers other notable and rich burgesses, that in the night time they should issue out of the Tower, and enter into the city, and so slay all these unhappy people, while they were at their rest and sleep. For it was thought that many of them were drunken, whereby they should be slain like flies. Also of 20 of them there was scant one in armour. And surely the good men of London might well have done this at their ease, for they had in their houses secretly their friends and servants ready in armour. Howbeit there was nothing done, for the residue of the commons of the city were sore feared lest they should also rise. And in the city with the mayor there were 12 aldermen, whereof 9 of them held with the king. And the other 3 took part with these ungracious people, as it was after well known, for the which they dearly paid. And on the Friday in the morning, the people being at St. Catherine's near to the Tower, began to apparel themselves and to cry and shout, and said without the king would come out and speak with them, they would assail the Tower and take it by force, and slay all them that were within. Then the king feared these words, and so was counselled that he should issue out to speak with them. And then the king sent to them that they should all draw to a fair plain place called Mile End, where the people of the city did sport them in the summer season, and there the king would grant them that which they desired. And there it was cried in the king's name that whosoever would speak with the king, let him go to the said place, and there he should not fail to find the king. Then the people began to depart, especially the commons of the villages, and went to the same place. But all went not thither, for they were not all one condition. For there were some that desired nothing but riches, and the utter destruction of the noblemen, and to have London robbed and pillaged. That was the principal matter of their beginning, the which they well showed. For as soon as the Tower Gate opened, and the king was issued out with his two brethren, and the Earl of Salisbury, the Earl of Warwick, the Earl of Oxford, Sir Robert of Newmar, and divers other, then Wat Tyler, Jack Straw, and John Ball, and more than 400 entered into the tower, and brake up chamber after chamber, and at last found the Archbishop of Canterbury, called Simon, a valiant man, and a wise and chief Chancellor of England. And a little before he had said mass before the king, these gluttons took him and strake off his head, and also they beheaded the Lord of St. John's, and a friar minor, master in medicine, pertaining to the Duke of Lancaster. They slew him in despite of his master, and a sergeant at arms, called John Legg. And these 4 heads were set on 4 long spears, and they made them to be borne before them through the streets of London, and at last set them on high on London Bridge, as though they had been traitors to the king and to the realm. Froissart and the Peasants Revolt, Part 4. How the nobles of England were in great peril to have been destroyed, and how these rebels were punished and sent home to their own houses. When the king came to the said place of Mile End, without London, he found there 70,000 men of divers villages and of sundry countries in England. So the king entered in among them, and said to them sweetly, Ah, ye good people, I am your king. What lack ye? What say ye? Then such as understood him said, We will that ye make us free for ever, ourselves, our heirs, and our lands, and that we be called no more bond, nor so reputed. Sir, said the king, I am well agreed thereto. Withdraw you home into your houses, and into such villages as ye came from, and leave behind you of every village 2 or 3. And I shall cause writings to be made, and seal them with my seal, the which they shall have with them, containing everything that ye demand. And so, the intent that ye shall be the better assured, I shall cause my banners to be delivered into every bailiwick, shire, and country. These words appeased well the common people, such as were simple and good plain men, that they were come thither, and wist not why. They said, It was well said, we desire no better. Thus these people began to be appeased, and began to withdraw them into the city of London. And the king also said a word, the which greatly contended them. He said, Sirs, among you good men of Kent ye shall have one of my banners with you, and ye of Essex another, and ye of Suffolk, and of Bedford, and of Cambridge, of Hertford, and of Lynn, each ye one. And also I pardon everything that ye have done hitherto, so that you follow my banners and return home to your houses. They all answered how they would so do. Thus these people departed and went into London. Then the king ordained more than 30 clerks the same Friday to write with all diligence letters patent, sealed with the king's seal, and deliver them to these people. And when they had received the writing, they departed and returned into their own countries. But the great venom remained still behind, for Wat Tyler, Jack Straw, and John Ball said, For all these people were thus appeased, yet they would not depart so, and they had of their accord more than 30,000. So they abode still, and made no press to have the king's writing nor seal, for all their intent was to put the city to trouble in such wise as to slay all the rich and honest persons, and to rob and pillage their houses. They of London were in great fear of this, wherefore they kept their houses privily with their friends and such servants as they had, every man according to his power. The Saturday the king went to Westminster and heard mass in the church there, and all his lords with him. And besides the church there was a little chapel with an image of Our Lady, which did great miracles, and in whom the kings of England had ever great trust and confidence. The king made his orisons before this image, and did there his offering. And then he leapt to his horse, and all his lords, and so the king rode toward London. And when he had ridden a little way, on the left hand there was a way to pass without London. The same morning Wat Tyler, Jack Straw, and John Ball had assembled their company together in a place called Smithfield, where every Friday there is a market of horses. And there were together all of affinity, more than 20,000, and yet there were many still in the town, drinking and making merry in the taverns, and paying nothing, for they were happy that made them best cheer. And these people in Smithfield had with them the king's banners, the which they were delivered them the day before, and all these gluttons were in mind to overrun and to rob London the same day, for their captain said how they had done nothing as yet. These liberties that the king hath given us are to us but a small profit. Therefore let us all of one accord, and let us overrun this rich and powerful city, ere they of Essex, of Suffolk, of Cambridge, of Bedford, of Arundel, of Warwick, of Reading, of Oxford, of Guildford, of Lynn, of Stafford, of Lincoln, of York, and of Durham do come hither. For all these will come hither, and if we be first lords of London, and have the possession of the riches that are therein, we shall not repent us. For if we leave it, they that come after will have it from us. To this counsel they all agreed. And therewith the king came the same way, unaware of them, for he had thought to have passed that way without London, and with him 40 horse. And when he came before the abbey of St. Bartholomew, and beheld all these people, then the king rested, and said how we would go no farther, till he knew what these people ailed, saying, if they were in any trouble, how he would appease them again. The lords that were with him tarried also, as reason was when they saw the king tarry. And when Wat Tyler saw the king tarry, he said to his people, Sirs, yonder is the king. I will go and speak with him. Stir not from hence without I make you a sign. And when I make you that sign, come on and slay them all, except the king. But do the king no hurt, he is young, and we shall do with him as we list, and shall lead him with us all about England, and so shall we be lords of all the realm, without doubt. And therewith he spurred his horse, and departed from his company, and came to the king, so near him that his horse's head touched the crop of the king's horse, and the first word that he said was this, Sir King, seest thou all yonder people? Yea, truly, said the king. Wherefore sayest thou? Because, said he, they will be all at my commandment, and have sworn to me faith and truth, to do all that I will have them. In a good time, said the king, I will well it be so. Then Wat Tyler said, as one that nothing demanded but riot, What believest thou, king, that these people, and as many people as be in London, at my commandment, will depart from thee thus, without having thy letters? No, said the king, ye shall have them. They be ordained for you, and shall be delivered every one each after other. Wherefore, good fellows, withdraw fair and easily to your people, and cause them to depart out of London. For it is our intent that each of you, by villages and townships, shall have letters patent, as I have promised you. With those words, Wat Tyler cast his eyes on a squire that was there with the king, bearing the king's sword. And Wat Tyler hated greatly the same squire, for the same squire had displeased him before for words between them. What, said Tyler, art thou there? Give me thy dagger. Nay, said the squire, that will I not do. Wherefore should I give it to thee? The king beheld the squire and said, Give it him, let him have it. And so the squire took it him sore against his will. And when this Wat Tyler had it, he began to play therewith, and turned it in his hand, and said again to the squire, Give me also that sword. Nay, said the squire, it is the king's sword. Thou art not worthy to have it, for thou art but a knave. And if there were no more here but thou and I, thou durst not speak those words, for as much gold in quantity as all yonder abbey. By my faith, said Wat Tyler, I shall never eat meat till I have thy head. And at these words the mayor of London came to the king with 12 horsemen, well armed, under their coats, and so he brake the press, and saw and heard how Wat Tyler demeaned himself, and said to him, Ha, thou knave, how art thou so hardy in the king's presence to speak such words? It is too much for thee so to do. Then the king began to chafe, and said to the mayor, Set hands on him. And while the king said so, Tyler said to the mayor, In God's name, what have I said to displease thee? Yes, truly, quoth the mayor, thou false stinking knave, shalt thou speak thus in the presence of the king, my natural lord? And with those words the mayor drew out his sword, and strake Tyler so great a stroke on the head that he fell down at the feet of his horse. And as soon as he was fallen, they environed him all about, whereby he was not seen of his company. Then a squire of the king's alighted, called John Standish, and he drew out his sword and put it into Wat Tyler's belly, and so he died. Then the ungracious people there assembled, perceiving their captain slain, began to murmur among themselves, and said, Ah, our captain is slain, let us go and slay them all. And therewith they arranged themselves on the place in manner of battle, and their bows before them. As soon as Tyler was on the earth, the king departed from all his company, and all alone he rode to these people, and said to his own men, Sirs, none of you follow me, let me alone. And so when he came before these ungracious people, who put themselves in order to revenge their captain, then the king said to them, Sirs, what aileth you? Ye shall have no captain but me. I am your king. Be all in rest and peace. And so the most part of the people that heard the king speak and saw him among them were shamefaced and began to wax peaceable and to depart. But some such as were malicious and evil would not depart, but made signs as though they would do somewhat. Then the king returned to his own company and demanded of them what was best to be done. Then he was counselled to draw into the field, for to fly away was of no use. Then said the mayor, It is good that we do so, for I think surely we shall have shortly some comfort of them of London, and of such good men as be of our part, who are prepared and have their friends and men ready, armed in their houses. And in the meantime noise and rumour ran through London how these unhappy people were likely to slay the king and the mayor in Smithfield. Through the which noise all manner of good men of the king's party issued out of their houses and lodgings well armed, and so came all to Smithfield and to the field where the king was, and they were anon to the number of 7,000 or 8,000 men well armed. And ever as they came they ranged from a foot in order of battle. And on the other part these unhappy people were ready ranged, making semblance to give battle, and they had with them divers of the king's banners. There the king made 3 knights, the one the mayor of London, Sir Nicholas Walworth, Sir John Standish, and Sir Nicholas Brember. Then the lords said among themselves, What shall we do? We see here our enemies, who would gladly slay us, if they might have the better hand of us. Sir Robert Knowles counselled to go and fight with them, and slay them all. Yet the king would not consent thereto, but said, Nay, I will not so. I will send to them, commanding them to send me again my banners, and thereby we shall see what they will do. Howbeit, either by fairness or otherwise, I will have them. That is well said, sir, quoth the Earl of Salisbury. Then these new knights were sent to them, and these knights made token to them not to shoot at them. And when they came so near them that their speech might be heard, they said, Sirs, the king commandeth you to send to him again his banners, and we think he will have mercy of you. And straightway they delivered again the banners, and sent them to the king. Also they were commanded, on pain of their heads, that all such as had letters of the king's were to bring them forth, and to send them again to the king. And so many of them delivered their letters, but not all. Then the king caused them to be all shorn in their presence. And as soon as the king's banners were delivered again, these unhappy people kept no array, but the most part of them did cast down their bows, and so broke their array, and returned into London. Sir Robert Knowles was sore displeased in that he might not go to slay them all. But the king would not consent thereto, but said he would be revenged of them well enough, and so he was after. Thus these foolish people departed, some one way, and some another. And the king and his lords, and all his company, right orderly entered into London with great joy. And the first journey that the king made, he went to the lady princess, his mother, who was in a castle in the royal called the Queen's Wardrobe. And there she had tarried 2 days and 2 nights, right sore afraid, as she had good reason. And when she saw the king, her son, she was greatly rejoiced, and said, Ah, fair son, what pain and great sorrow that I have suffered for you this day. Then the king answered and said, Certainly, madam, I know it well, but now rejoice yourself and thank God, for now it is time. I have this day recovered mine heritage and the realm of England, the which I had near lost. Thus the king tarried that day with his mother, and every lord went peaceably to his own lodgings. Then there was a cry made in every street in the king's name, that all manner of men, not being of the city of London, and not having dwelt there the space of 1 year, should depart. And if any such be found there on the Sunday by the sun rising, that they should be taken as traitors to the king, and lose their heads. This cry was made, there was none that durst break it, and so all manner of people departed, and sparkled abroad every man to their own places. John Ball and Jack Straw were found in an old house hidden, thinking to have stolen away, but they could not, for they were accused by their own men. On the taking of them, the king and his lords were glad, and then strike off their heads and Wat Tyler's also. And they were set on London Bridge, and the valiant men's heads taken down, that they had set on the Thursdays before. These tidings anon spread abroad, so that the people of the strange counties which were coming towards London returned back again to their own houses and durst come no further. Froissart and the Peasants Revolt, Part 5. How the King punished of these traitors, the chief masters. Now I shall show you the vengeance that the King of England took on these ungracious people. When these people were appeased, and Baker was executed to death, and Lister of Norwich, Wat Tyler, Jack Straw, John Ball, and divers others at London. Then the King was counselled to go visit his realm through every shire, bailiwick, and village, to purge and punish all the said evildoers, and to get again all such letters as by force he had given them in divers places, and so to bring again his realm in good order. Then the King sent secretly for a certain number of men at arms to come to him at a day appointed, and so they did, to the number of 500 spears and as many archers. And when they were all come as the King had devised, the King departed from London with his household men only, and took the way into Kent, where first these ungracious people began to stir. And these foresaid men of war followed after the King and coasted him, but they rode not in his company. The King entered into Kent and came to a village called Uxbridge, and called the mayor and all the men of the town before him. And when they were all come into a fair place, the King made to be shown them by one of his council how they had erred against the King, and how they had near turned all England to tribulation and to loss. And because that the King knew well that this business was begun by some of them, and not by all, wherefore it were better that some did bear the blame than all. Therefore he commanded them that they should show who they were that were culpable, on pain to be for ever in the king's indignation, and to be reputed as traitors against him. And when they that were there assembled heard that request, and saw well that such as were culpable should excuse all the other, then they beheld each other, and at last said, Sir, behold him here by whom this town was first moved. Straightway he was taken and hanged, and so they were hanged to the number of 7. And the letters that the King had given them were demanded again, and so they were delivered again, and torn and broken before all the people. And it was said to them all, Sirs, ye that be here assembled, we command you in the King's name, on pain of death, every man to go home to his own house peaceably, and never to grudge nor rise against the King, nor none of his officers. And this trespass that ye have done the King doth pardon you thereof. Then they cried all with one voice, God thank the King's grace and all his council. In like manner as the King did at Uxbridge, he did at Canterbury, at Sandwich, and in other places in Kent. In likewise he did in all other places of his realm, where any rebellion had been, and there were hanged and beheaded more than 1,500. The end. Thank you for watching the YouTube channel of Medieval Chronicles, and please subscribe to hear more original texts from the English Middle Ages. Thank you from London, and goodbye.